Hello everyone, I am Captain Hawkticus, and I am here on account of our great God Empress Jessie Milestone being indisposed. Now, she has given me this opportunity to speak to all of you about a ship that should be far more respected than it is, the Y-Wing. Now, as you're probably aware, this ship was not in a recent battle, much to my shock. And so I have decided that, in the interests of proper information, to make this video explaining to you the history and capabilities of this esoteric vessel. Now let's begin with its basic history. The first Y-Wing, simply the BTL-B Y-Wing, is from the Clone Wars, and it looks significantly different than the one most people would be familiar with. Primarily, the fact that it actually has all of its hull covered. Yes, the Y-Wing most people are familiar with doesn't have any hull coverings on it. That's basically just a frame with all of the components exposed. It was so the rebels could work on it more easily. Now, the BTL-B served with distinction in the Republic military. It was an excellent bomber. It featured a bubble turret, which swiveled 360 degrees, providing a clear view for the gunner. And the turret was, of course, an ion cannon, giving this ship a unique ability to disable instead of just destroy. Now, in every other respect, it was almost identical to the BTL S3 Y-Wing, other than the fact that the BTL S3 was just a straight improvement. It was still a two-man strike fighter as the first. The difference is they removed the bubble turret and replaced it with a standard turret, which was operated from the gunner's position, which was immediately behind the pilot inside of the cockpit. It was simply safer that way. Now, the S3 is a perfectly fine vessel. However, it's still not the one most people are familiar with. The one people would be familiar with are the BTL A4 Y-Wings, which is a single-man version of the S3. They remove the gunner position and they lock the overhead ion cannon typically in a forward-facing position, though there were some who decided to lock it backwards to give themselves tail shots, and others who did strange things such as locking it to their left or right for shock value. I can only assume. It doesn't seem to be a particularly intelligent tactical decision, but pilots will be pilots. The A4 also had reduced shield strength in comparison to the other models. This was to boost engine speed. And it is the A4 that we would be most familiar with from the Star Wars films. However, the S3 is the single most common variant in the galaxy. Now, those are the, broadly speaking, three primary production line variants of the Y-Wing. I will get into a few other ones later. But let's get into the Y-Wing's specific capabilities. And these are broadly analogous across all modes, but just be aware that the BTL-B is going to be slower than the S3, which is going to be slower than the A4. So, yeah, let's say within a few points one way or the other, depending on the particular model you're thinking of. Now, speed in Star Wars is measured in what is called megalights. This either translates to a form of distance, or in context, it would be megalights per hour or so. What this translates to into real-world numbers, we have no idea. So, I'll just be using their particular numbers, and some of these acronyms do not have actual translations into words, so just please be aware this is strictly for comparative purposes with other ships, which is why I will be giving you some context on that. Now, the Y-Wing's megalights rating is 80. Contrast this with the T-65 and the TIE LN's 100, and you will see that it is considerably slower, and then add in the fact that its maneuverability rating is 59 DPF compared to the T-65's 75 DPF, and the TIE Fighter's 96 to 100 DPF. And you can see that this ship is terribly outmatched in the speed and maneuverability department. However, the BTL Y-Wing has a shield rating of 75 SBD compared to the T-65's 50 SBD. That is a 50% increase. And, of course, the TIE is a complete lack of shielding altogether. Now, that would be good enough, but now we compare the hull strength, which it is rated at 40 RU compared to the T-65's 20 RU, and the TIE Fighter's 9 to 15 RU. And you begin to understand that the Y-Wing is an incredibly robust and durable vehicle designed for flying through enemy fire and hammering them with barrages of proton torpedoes from the squadron. And that truly is its greatest strength, the fact that it can carry 8 proton torpedoes, or can, of course, be configured to carry proton bombs. This is compared to the armament of the T-65, which can only carry 6 proton torpedoes. Now, you wouldn't think 2 proton torpedoes is a lot, but it does add up a fair amount, and especially when combined with the fact that it has the turreted ion cannons, which gives it a fair amount of firepower to combine with its rugged durability. And, of course, if you begin modifying it, you could take the ion cannon off and put a laser turret on top, and now you just have even more firepower. And that's really the true strength right there of the Y-Wing. The height of the Rebellion, the Y-Wing was the second most common fighter in the galaxy. And that's because there was just so many. They made so many because Cosner, Cosnar, wanted to sell it to the Empire, and the Empire said no. They took the TIE Fighter because it's significantly cheaper, and so they started selling them to planetary defense forces, pirates, and mercenaries, and everybody else under the sun, and that's how the rebels got their hands on them. And that's why there are just so freaking many of them. The 2 most common starfighters in the galaxy was the TIE Fighter and the Y-Wing. And the Y-Wing it's the one that lasted longer, simply because it was its job. The rebels loved this ship. It was, yes, slow and a little ungainly, but even when the T-65 came out, the Y-Wing was still in heavy usage and remained in heavy usage even after its supposed replacement, the B-Wing, came out, because it was easier to fly and it was better at doing non-lethal grabs, as the ion cannon was a little easier to swing around and hit your targets. The B-Wing, however, did completely eclipse it as a sort of heavy assault fighter or fighter-bomber, as it was simply more maneuverable. But I'm going to go back to the sheer customizability of the Y-Wing, because the Rebels did some very, very interesting things with this ship. Simply because, well, when all you have is Y-Wings, it looks like you can solve every problem with a Y-Wing. Now, they have created a variant called the BTL A4 Long Probe Y-Wing. This is a Y-Wing whose primary purpose is a scout ship. It is equipped with a nav computer, so instead of needing to have an astromech, you have a built-in nav computer. And it has a backup hyperdrive, advanced scanners, an extended fuel supply, and you take out the weapon systems officer and a fair amount of other things. Also, as you will notice, the nacelles are in a different configuration for this. It's not enough to make it a true scout craft, but it has significantly heavier armament than pretty much any other scout craft, and significantly more durable, which means if it gets found out, it has far better odds of surviving. And it was such a good scout ship that even into the Thrawn era and beyond, when they began retiring Y-Wings from active service to be used only in defensive purposes, they didn't get rid of the long probe simply because it was so good at the job they wanted it to do, to be a scout craft for very dangerous areas, whereas the other ones had to completely rely on stealth. This one could kind of pop in, take a look around, and it didn't matter if it got noticed, because it could take a couple of shots and run. Now, the last official, with quotes, variant is the BTL S3 Courier variant. This is actually fascinating because it's a, of course, modified Y-Wing once again, and they took the ion cannons off, A larger main cockpit area is able to carry up to 5 people on a special canopy split down the middle for rapid embarking or disembarkation of passengers during brief landings. It was effectively a small shuttlecraft. They simply extended the cockpit back, as you can see, and drove people around in it. Because when all you have is Y-wings, everything can get solved with a Y-wing. And it's a highly robust craft, and that's its true strength. Its true strength is in that. And thankfully parts were very common and simple to get, because they were everywhere, much like a TIE fighter. And this is where we come into two unofficial, but they're so common they may as well be official variants of the Y-wing. The first is called the TIE wing. This is called an ugly, as is the second ship I'll be talking about. The TIE wing is terrible in absolutely every respect. There is nothing good about this ship. As you can see, it is the ball cockpit of a TIE fighter with the engine nacelles of the Y-wing slapped onto it. This means it has the maneuverability and max speed of a Y-wing, but it has the shield capability and offensive punch of a TIE fighter, which is to say, crap. These were nicknamed by Rogue Squadron after the Battle of Endor as Die Wings, because, well, you're flying this, you're gonna die. Because if you're flying this, you are a desperate, desperate person, because it's terrible. Now, to completely contrast with the Die Wing is the Y-TIE. Now, the Y-TIE is actually a very fascinating ship. It is, as you can see, a Y-wing primary fuselage with the TIE fighter engines replacing the nacelles and then the solar panels worked onto it. Also, they have replaced the ion cannon mounted on the Y-wing with the main guns of the TIE fighter. So now it has a laser turret instead of an ion turret. This actually is a very good combination of ships. Now, it does lose some shield strength, as the twin ion engines of the TIE fighter weren't quite designed to have that, give it enough power to do that. So it does lose a bit on the durability, but it gains rather substantially in speed and maneuverability. It's not as much to put it up there with the X-Wing or the TIE fighter, but it does make it considerably more maneuverable than a Y-wing, and it is still more durable than an X-Wing. I like to think of it as a slightly slower but more durable X-Wing. It's got a similar job, and you have a turret that has 360-degree coverage. It's a very good ship. It's a wonderful balance between the two of them. The only thing stopping it from being absolutely devastating is the fact that it is an ugly, and uglies are, by their very existence, an unstable, slapped-together combination of ships. Now, what's all this amounting to with the Y-wing? Well, the Y-wing is a ship that served with distinction for nearly 40 years. It did its job well. It did everything that was asked of it and more. Beyond just bombing, it was actually used for dogfighting because the turret gave it a massive advantage in these kind of engagements. The ship was extremely durable, and in multiple games, including Star Wars Saga Edition, my personal favorite, this ship is so durable that you can double your shields up on the front and ram a TIE fighter, and you won't take any damage, and the TIE fighter will be obliterated. Just to point that out to you. That's something you generally don't see in the movies, because shields on small ships generally don't seem to get a lot of treatment. You might see the Y-wing take an extra shot or two, but it's something that you see far more in the games, both on the tabletop and in the video games. The Y-wing is a flying brick. It's terrifying. And it's a ship that just doesn't get enough respect. So when it wasn't in a certain movie, I was a little annoyed, particularly because the ship that they did put in was inferior in absolutely every single way to the venerable and respected Y-wing. Even if we are talking that happened 30-some-odd years later. Remember, the Y-wing was in service from, the particular ones we're familiar with, from 18 years before Yavin, all the way up till 5 years after Endor? And that's straight active service. We're not counting the fact that the ship was used prolifically across the galaxy by independent people, various independent factions, various independent governments, and the fact that the Rebel Alliance, which eventually became the Republic, used them for defensive purposes, because the ship is still good even 30 years down the line. It is a fantastic vessel, and does not get anywhere near the respect it deserves. Now, I thank you for all listening to me today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'd also like to personally thank God Empress Jessie for giving me this opportunity. May you all have a wonderful day. Peace out.